Governor, I believe it is. And you brave souls who came out this morning to this breakfast. Let me say I'm happy to be here. I'm also conscious of the fact that time is of the essence here this morning, and I'm going to get right into my message. I find that I'm a little bit at a disadvantage following the bishop. Yeah, he spoke to you last night. That puts me sort of in a bad light. The great speaker that he is, but I'm going to do the best that this country boy knows, and then leave it with you. My nickname is Baldie. I'm glad to see here this morning so many of my fraternity members. I became bald rather young, and of course it bothered me quite a bit to be kidded about being bald. And I defended it on many occasions until one day, when a fellow was kidding me about it, I said to him, "Listen, my friend, you certainly must know that hair and brains don't go together." And he said, "Yeah, Baldy, I know that. But said, let's be honest. Which went first in your opinion?" Into the barber shop once in a while. I'm a friend to the barber, and I like to contribute to his welfare. Not that I need a haircut so much, but I just go in and while away 30 minutes with it. The other day I went in and I sat down and I said, "Well, give me the usual." And so he gets his clippers and his scissors and he begins to snip around. He must do something down in that darn floor. But while he was working at it, he had just about all of it off, except just a little gray fringe around the edge of the hair there. A friend of mine came in and he looked and he said, "Baldy, I don't understand why you waste money this way." But he says, "I do too." He said, "Just looking at you this morning," says, "it makes me appreciate the fact that you always go first class. Here you have white sidewalls and a hard top." And I told you, I'm just country boys came to Atlanta several years ago. And I purposed in my mind when I arrived here that I was going to get me a good job and go to work and make some money and live like the Joneses live. And for about 35 years, I've tried it. There have been many times when I thought I was just about on par with them. But I finally come to the conclusion today that you can't live like the Joneses. No sooner than I'd get what I thought was about on an even keel with them, they'd refinance and be gone again. How many here from Elwood County this morning? Well, good for you boys. Down there where I was born and raised, we had an old fellow by the name of Gabe Tucker. Now, Gabe may be a fictional character as far as I know, but he has become very real to this bald-headed country boy. Gabe didn't have an education. He had no opportunity to secure an education for himself. But he had what we called in those days a lot of down-to-earth, everyday good horse sense. Gabe said a lot of things that had a lot of meaning. And among the things that he said that has remained with me through the years is this: you can notch it on your paling that it's a mighty risky plan to make your judgment by the clothes that covers up a man. For I hardly need to remind you that you often come across a $100 saddle on a $20 horse. And working in the low ground, you discover as you go that the finest shuffle hides in the little snubbing in the road. I think that folks has got a mighty little chance of heaven that just hold on to their piety for one day in 7. They talk about the sinners with a lot of solemn chat and never drop a pin in the missionary hat. And they're foremost in the meeting house with the raising of the tunes, but they lay aside their religion with their Sunday pantaloons. And then Gabe says, "I never judges people that I meet along the way by the places where they come from and the places where they stay. For I have learned that the bantam chicken is fond of roosting mighty high, And that old turkey buzzard can sail above the eagle in the sky. You catch little minnows in the middle of the sea, and you'll find the littlest possum up the biggest kind of tree. Now that's the philosophy of Gabe Tucker, and I think Gabe's right. He's got something there. You don't judge a man in his heart by the kind of clothes that he wears. Neither can you tell how he treats his family by the kind of car that he rides in or the house that he lives in. You've got to know more about him. You've got to live with him and love him and have him to love you before you can know. I had it so ably demonstrated to me a few years ago as I was traveling up into the mountains of North Georgia. Before the days of good roads, I got lost. And I did not know how to get out. So I began to look around to find some information on how to get away and back out of the mountain. I saw a little road leading off to a little one-room shack about 300 yards off the road. And I drove down towards this shack. And as I came closer to it, I saw an old man sitting on the front porch, just a little lean-to porch he had. His hair was hanging around his shoulder, and his beard was halfway down his waist. And I began to analyze it, and I said to myself, now here's an old man that was born and reared up here in the mountains. He's ignorant. He hadn't been more than 10 or 15 miles away from his own where he was born. And here he is. He's completely satisfied and happy here because he doesn't know any better. So I asked him some questions about how to get out of the mountains, and he gave me good information. And then I thought I should be more sociable, so I asked him a question. I said, old timer, do you live here all alone? He said, I do. I said, certainly I have not seen another house or another person in the past 15 miles. You must be here in this area all alone. I said, don't you get terribly lonesome living up here by yourself? Well, sir, that stirred his action. He uncrossed his legs and slapped his feet down on that little old loose board porch. He switched his cough pipe from one side of his mouth to the other, and he spat a stream of amber halfway across the yard. He pointed his finger at me and he said, listen, son, solitude is the state of mind which effectuates its reactionary tendencies and inoculates those with hypersensitivity. However, having been a victim of claustrophobia during my adolescence, I find that habitation within these environments is not only serene and desirable, but fundamentally mandatory. Goodbye, son. I feel it. That caused me never to judge a man by the place that I find him or the clothes that he wears. I say that now in order that I might say to you that if I hadn't told you, maybe you wouldn't guess this morning that about 51 years ago that I was one of the most bashful, backward, and awkward 10-year-old country boys you ever saw. Born over here in Elbert County, member of a large family. We lived over there pretty close to the river, hardly a stone's throw from our house down the Savannah River. We were poor folks. There were 5 boys, 4 girls, Mom and Papa and Grandma. We all lived there in a little shack of a house. It wasn't much. In fact, it was so open that when the dogs barked, we didn't know whether they were in the house or on the outside. We kids had a couple of cats. We loved those cats. They were in and out of the house, of course. And they found that big hot stone up in front of the fireplace. They loved to lie there and sleep. You know, that old hot stone, as it comes back across the air, reminds me of the many, many times that I've gone out and brought in white mud to keep that thing looking pretty and white. But there are those cats, they found that place because it was cooler in the summertime and warmer in the winter, and they loved to lie there. We children loved them and played with them. But my papa, he despised to see cats in the house. And no sooner than he'd hit the door and he'd see those cats lying there, he'd stomp his foot and he'd say, "Scat!" Now those of you who sat where I sat, you've seen them go out through the cat holes and through the doors. But these cats just fell through the floor. best we could do. We did not have the distinction that Abraham Lincoln had of being born and reared in a log cabin. But just as soon as Papa could afford one, we moved right in. I think I can better illustrate to you just how poor we were by saying that we came to the breakfast table a lot of mornings, and sat down, and as I sat here this morning and enjoyed this fine breakfast with you men, my mind went hopping down high hurdles back across the years, and I remembered the many, many times that we came to the breakfast table, and all 12 of us, and sat down. I remember that Papa sat here on this end, Mama was down here, and the children and Grandma slid in on those benches on each side of the table. And after Papa had said grace, there was lots and lots of times that the only thing we had to feed those 12 people was country ham and country sausage and fresh yard eggs and hot biscuits. That's all we had. I tell you, my friends, we had not heard the first thing about post oysters and cream of wheat and all. And another thing, we had to eat just plain country butter. We didn't know a thing in the world about this oleo margarine. Now, of course, you know as well as I do, there had to be a lot of food to feed a family of that size. 25 acres of corn, 30 acres of cotton, 5 acres of sweet potatoes, and that many peanuts and sorghum cane. That was not uncommon for our farm. We had a good garden and a good orchard. And in the summertime, when the vegetables and the fruit were all ready, Mom and Grandma come into the house with that fruit and have a big canning session there on that wood range, fill up all the jars. And then when they were all filled, there was still fruit on the trees. And it was just a little earlier than this in the year, each year, that I can recall as they sat there on that side porch and cut the fruit off, and we children would take it and lay it out under the sun so that it could dry. We'd have dried fruit for the winter time. I tell you, my friend, those of you who remember will know certainly how those little old half-moon dried apple pies came in so handy. Oh, I'll tell you, they were wonderful. After the first frost, and we began to use that dried fruit, making it into these pies, I can recall that at any time that I felt a little hunger on earth to have something to eat, that I could go into the house and go there to the safe and open it up. Now, I hope I don't have to explain that safe business to you. You remember the one that had the two spools for the doors and the little nail holes in the doors to let the air in? We could go and open it up, and there'd be a plate stacked up that high with these little old half-moon dried apple pies. I don't recall that I ever took a lunch to school, but when lunchtime came and I'd take that cotton bucket I had my lunch in and open it up, and there right on top would be a couple of these little old half-moon dried apple pies. My friends, they were good, but you have them every day for a whole school term and you can get awfully tired. Came to the place where I loathe, abhor, detest, despise, abominate dried apple pies. I like good bread and I like good meat. In fact, I like anything that's good to eat. But of all poor food beneath the skies, the poorest is dried apple pie. The farmer will take his little knotty fruit. It's wormy and bitter and hard to boot. And he'll leave the cores in to make us cough, and he doesn't take half the peelings off. And then on a dirty string they are strung, and in some garret window hung, there to remain a roost for flies until they're made into dried apple pie. My friends, we didn't have much money, but we had a lot of fun. I tell you, I started to school when I was quite young. We didn't have school but a couple of months in the summer and about 3 months in the winter. So we had to take the advantage of every opportunity to go. But I can remember in the summertime when I began, I was about 6 years old. I wasn't big enough to plow. I'd come home in the afternoon about 4 o'clock. Sun was still pretty high, and I knew that Papa was out in the field working and that he was tired and hungry and thirsty too by that time. So I'd take the water pail and go to the well and draw a fresh bucket of water and fill up the water pail. Then I'd go into the kitchen there where that big range was, and I'd pull the lid down and look in, and sure enough, there's that biscuit pan that Mama cooked some biscuits for dinner. I'd get me 4 of them, you know, the big kind. I'd get me 4 of them, and I'd go into the dining room. There on the table, right in the center of it, was that big white sugar bowl. And clustered around it was the salt and pepper and the vinegar bottle and the syrup pitcher. I'd move everything away from that sugar bowl and just get them all away. And then I'd take these biscuits one at a time, and I'd get this finger down in there, and I'd bore them out. And when I had all 4 of them bored out, I'd stand them up with the holes up around that sugar bowl. And I'd take that syrup pitcher and I'd prime them. I'd wrap them up and take that water pail, and I'd go out to the field hunting with my dad. He'd see me coming, he'd motion for me to meet him over there at the apple tree or over in the shade someplace. And there we'd spend about 30 minutes together, and we'd share those biscuits and that fresh water. And there a father and his son talked about the things that were important for a man and his son to talk about. Whatever success I have in life, whatever I've had up to this point, whatever I have from now on, I'm going to give my dad and mother a lot of credit for giving me some really good training. Christian parents. And I say with pride today, that is one of the best heritages I have, as I look back across the years. I had woven into the very texture of my soul something that I could not lose. And when there have been times when I have forgotten and let my feet slip, I've always had something that I could kiss hold of and pull myself back and live within the heights of myself. I'll tell you, my friends, it was important to me. And I remember that when night came and all of the children gathered around the fireplace, Papa would reach up on the mantelpiece and take the Bible down and read from it. Then he said, let's pray. And we got down on our knees, and he prayed for us. But we children had been taught that that wasn't sufficient for us, because as soon as that was over, we gathered around Mama's knee, all 9 of us, and we said that simple little prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. You know, I love to repeat that prayer over and over. It does something. And as I say, I'm proud of that heritage. And if there's anything that might cause me to tremble and to shudder today, it would be the fear that my children couldn't say the same things about me that I say about my dad and my mother. You know, we live in troubled times. One of the most withering words of our days is the word confusion. Nearly everybody's confused about something. All the way from individual frustrations to international fears, the peoples of this world today walk with apprehensive and uncertain steps. And I'm afraid that sometimes we forget that God is still in power in this world. And every time I pick up some little inspiration that makes me be a better man, I hold on to it and I try to use it in my daily life. One of the greatest joys that comes to me is to be able to touch people and to inspire them and to make them glad that they're alive. Just a short time ago, I picked up a little bit of inspiration that I want to share with you as I close. While resting one day by the side of the road, I met an old farmer in a field he just hoed. His face was all brown and wrinkled from the sun and the wind, and he was talking to the Lord just like he'd been talking to a friend. Well, sir, he said with a voice calm and quiet, them corn tassels need a sacking, and I ain't got no string to tie. And it hadn't rained in such a long time, the fields are getting mighty dusty. And it's been so unbearable hot this summer that the kids are even getting fussy. And that grass down yonder in the pasture, Lord, it should have been knee-high. If we could just have a good shower, maybe to keep the cow from going dry. Oh, but listen to me talking. You'd think that I wasn't grateful. And if you didn't know me real good, Lord, you'd think I was downright hateful. You'd think that I forgot about the new calf that you sent, and the money in the mail that helped take care of the rent. Ma's cold is better, and Johnny's home from the Navy, and we had a good dinner Sunday, chicken and dumplings and gravy. And that new preacher you sent us, Lord, he sure is a fine young man. He's just preaching and converting the sinners to beat the band. Well, I guess I'll mosey on home now, Lord. I won't take no more of your time. Because I guess there's a lot of folks here about this waiting to ring your line. Evening to you, Lord. Watch over us tonight. And don't you worry about us none. Because everything